In this lesson, we are going to cover the second part of area and volume ratios, which is going to cover volume ratios. So remember, scale factor is the ratio of the lengths of a side on the image to the length of its corresponding side on the pre-image. So if we're going from a big shape to a small shape, then we're reducing it. The scale factor is going to be less than 1. And if we were going from a small shape to a bigger shape, then we are expanding it and the scale factor would be greater than 1. So for example, this one right here is reduced by a scale factor of 1/2. So volume ratios works just like the same thing as area ratios. All right, the only thing that's different is that with volume, there's that third dimension, right? We have length, width, and height. Okay, so there's 3 dimensions. So instead of squaring the multiplier, we are going to cube the multiplier. Okay, so remember, if you're given a volume and you know that all the dimensions are similar, that they are increased by the same scale factor, then we can use the formula that the new volume is going to equal the original volume times the multiplier cubed. Okay, so instead of saying multiplier, we're going to say scale factor. Instead of saying new volume, we're going to say volume 2. And instead of saying original, we're going to say volume 1. Okay, so again, this is completely the same as what we talked about with area, only now we have V's because it's volume instead of A for area, and it's cubed instead of squared. All right, so again, T is going to stand for our scale factor, and all we did right here was just divide, right, by volume 1 to get this final formula right here. V2 over V1 equals T cubed. So what we are going to start with, okay, it says that prism A is similar to prism B. Okay, so that means all of their dimensions, right, all their corresponding sides are going to be proportional. They're going to have the same scale factor. We want to find the volume of prism B if the volume of prism A is 1,120. Okay, so we're given this one. We want to know what the volume of this new shape is. Okay, so this is our original shape. That's our number 1. That's what we started with, and we want to know the new volume. So V2 is going to go on top. V1 is going to go on the bottom. Now here we need T. We need the scale factor. Okay, now if we are going, okay, from if we're going from this big shape to this small shape, right, we know that the scale factor has to be less than 1, okay? So what we are going to do is we are going to take 7 and divide that by 14, okay? So 7 over 14 is 1/2. That means that the scale factor is 1/2, right? Because it has to be less than 1 in order for the shape to get smaller. So our scale factor now is going to be 1/2, and we're going to cube it. Okay, so here we have the volume of the new shape over 1,120, and then we're going to cube 1/2, right? 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So we have 1 over 8. So we have 8 times the volume of the second shape equals 1120. So now we're going to divide by 8, and 1,120 divided by 8 is going to be 140. So the volume of the second shape is going to be 140 cubic inches. Okay, and to check your work, right, take 1,120 and you multiply it by 1/2 cubed. Okay, so that would be 0.5 times 0.5 times 0.5, which is 0.125, times that by 1,120, and that's going to give you 140. So that is our new volume. Okay, cylinder G is a reduction of cylinder F, okay? Cylinder G is the reduction. That means it's the second shape. So this is V2, and this is V1. It is reduced by a scale factor of 3/5. Find the volume of cylinder F if the volume of cylinder G is 540 pi cubic inches. Okay, so here we want to find V1. All right, so we put V2 on top, the volume of 2, and we're just going to keep pi here. Since it gave us pi, we're going to keep pi, 540 pi, over the volume of the original needs to equal 3/5 cubed. Okay, so now we're just going to take we're going to take and cube it, right? 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. So we're going to have 540 pi over volume 1 equals 27. 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. Okay, so now we're going to multiply here. We're going to take 125 times 540, which is going to give us 6,500. And then don't forget the pi, right? Because it's got that pi attached to it. Then we have 27 times the volume of number 1, right? The original shape. So now we're just going to divide by 27. So we take 6,500 and divide it by 27 and just keep the pi there, right? We have 2,500 pi is going to be the volume of shape 1. So 2,500 pi inches cubed. Okay? And all we have to do in order to check that, right, is to take 2,500 pi and multiply it times 3/5 cubed, right? We already know 3/5 cubed is 27 over 125. Okay, so 25 pi times 27 over 125. 2,500 times 27 is 67,500, and then divide that by 125, and that gives you 540 pi. So that is the correct answer. This one says cone U is similar to cone V. Find the volume of cone V if the volume of cone U is 256 pi cubic centimeters. Okay, so this one, 256 pi cubic centimeters. All right, now here our scale factor is getting bigger, right? We're going from this small shape to this big shape. So now what we want to do is take 15 and divide that by 12, which is 1.25. So our scale factor is going to be 1.25. Okay, now here our original, our V1 is going to be 256, right? Because that's what we're starting with. And what we're going to end up with is the volume for 2. So we have V2 over 256 pi needs to equal 1.25 cubed. So now we're going to take 1.25 and we're going to cube it. So 1.25 times 1.25 times 1.25 for 256 pi is going to equal 1.953125. Okay, so kind of a long number. We could have turned that into a fraction, but we'll just go ahead and leave that there. Okay, so now we're going to take that number, 1.953125, and we're going to multiply it times 256, which is 500. And don't forget your pi, right? So we have 500 pi. So that is going to be our new volume, 500 pi centimeters cubed. Okay, and we can test that, right? And we can take this 1.25, right? 1.25 is just 5 over 4. Okay, so that would be an easier way to check our answer, right? So we could take 256 pi times 5 over 4 cubed. Okay, so 256 pi. Remember, we already did 5 cubed. That's 125, right? And then 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. 125 times 256 is 32,000, and then we're going to divide by 64, which is going to give us 500 pi. So we know that that is the correct answer, 500 pi centimeters cubed. And that is the end of area and volume ratios part 2.